Good morning, everybody. At the outside, I'd like to thank AOI Scientific Committee and Dr. Krishna Prasad sir for giving me this opportunity. Today, I'll be talking about the management of post-keratoplasty astigmatism. Keratoplasty is considered to be the most successful of all the transplant procedures till date, and usually the survival rate is around 90%. But the ultimate success of the transplant is not only determined by the clarity of the graft, but also on the visual quality in the patient. As you can see here, there are two clear grafts, but on your right side, the clear graft, the vision acuity in that patient is quite poor because of higher astigmatism. As compared to the picture in the left side, the patient has quite a good vision acuity due to lesser astigmatism. So it is said that around 15 to 30% of the patient have post-operative astigmatism of more than 5 diopters. There are many factors which can contribute to post-keratoplasty astigmatism. Preoperatively, corneal scarring, corneal vascularization, peripheral thinning as in ectatic conditions can lead to astigmatism post-keratoplasty. Intraoperative factors like suture length, suture tension, orientation can also lead to astigmatism post-operatively. And then the graft sizing, graft centration also plays an important factor in determining your ultimate astigmatism post-operatively. In the post-operative period, factors like surface inflammation, epithelial healing, edema, and graft force symmetry also plays a part in determining the astigmatism post-operative. There are few factors among these where the surgeon has actual control over determining the astigmatism post-operatively. One of them is trephination of the cornea. As we all know, mechanical trephination can lead to torsional effect on the cornea, which in turn causes irregular edges and discrepancy between the recipient and the donor cornea. While if we use the vacuum trephines, all these irregularities and eccentricity of the graft is minimized. So vacuum trephination is pretty much advised. Another factor where surgeon has control is corneal sutures. So correct position of these 4 cardinal suture is of utmost importance because this actually determines the overall symmetry of tissue distribution in the patient. The amount of astigmatism tolerated depends upon the age, lifestyle, and presence of binocular or binocular vision in the patient. Usually, patient tolerates up to 4 diopters post-operatively. In the first month after keratoplasty, the surgeon should focus on rehabilitating the surface, treat the dry eye, and epithelial healing. At the end of 3 months after keratoplasty, focus should be on doing the topography and knowing the surface regularity. And also one can do refraction and determine the spirocylinder in the patient. So one of the most conservative methods to control the astigmatism post-operatively is using spectacles, but they have a very limited use in high astigmatism or irregular astigmatism. So in such cases, we can use contact lens because these days we have multi-colored lenses with increased diameters, which have increased success chance in controlling irregular and higher astigmatism. But they have issues like graft infection, vascularization, and scarring. So even after that, it is said that around 10 to 20% patients after keratoplasty cannot be satisfactorily treated for astigmatism even by spectacle or contact lens. In such cases, suture removal or adjustment can be done. So selective suture removal can be done initially, wherein after doing a topography, steepest meridian is determined, and so selective suture removal is done at the steepest meridian first to flatten it. Usually this can be done as early as 3 months, at the end of 3 months, when the surface is stable enough and the wound is also healed. Usually we remove only 1 suture at a time, and subsequent non-adjacent sutures can be removed after an interval of 4 to 6 weeks, based upon the astigmatic values. So if you are using running sutures, these tension adjustment can be done as early as 2 to 4 weeks post-operatively, but the risk of suture slippage or breakage will be always be there. So once all the sutures are done, and if the patient is still having vision debilitating astigmatism, one can go for incisional keratotomy. This can be done as early as 3 to 4 months after complete suture removal. The main principle here is to flatten the steep corneal meridian, either with arcuate or transverse incisions. So this causes reciprocal steepening in the flat meridian also, which is called as coupling effect. So incision is usually placed in the graft host interface or in the donor cornea, usually not in the host cornea. This can be done either manually, mechanized, or with femtosecond laser. And there are various nomograms to decide it, so I'll not go into it. But one of the major disadvantages with incisional keratotomy is its poor predictability and the chances of corneal perforation or wound dehiscence. So following the same principle of incisional keratotomy, one can also use intracorneal ring segments. These can be placed after 3 months after complete sutural removal to be placed in the donor cornea, not at the graft root interface or the host cornea, to be placed in the donor cornea. So now with the advent of newer excimer laser machine, one can even use excimer laser to treat the spirocylinder correction in the patients. But one of the major drawback is the astigmatism correction is usually subnormal. It's not very accurate, and the predictability also is not very that great. So patients usually land up with enhancement or regression. So patients who have very high astigmatism, they can be considered for wedge resection. Here basically 2 curvilinear incisions are placed. One curvilinear incision, first one is placed usually on the graft host interface, and the other one is placed on the host cornea, angled to the first one, and the intervening tissue is then excised, and then the both edges are sutured with interrupter sutures. So this is usually done on the flatter axis, not on the steeper axis. So this usually corrects up to 12 to 20 diopters of astigmatism. Again, as in any incisional keratotomies, but wedge resections results are also very much unpredictable. So not a very much a preferred technique to treat astigmatism. So at the end, if the patient develops cataract after keratoplasty, one can always remove the cataract and place a customized toric lenses. Usually this will be helpful in cases who have regular astigmatism, because patients with irregular astigmatism are not ideal candidates to place toric IOLs. In very much younger patients or with clear lenticular status, one can use even phakic IOLs, which can treat the astigmatism part up to a certain extent. But chance of rotation, cataract formation, and endothelial decompensation is an issue. If any of all the previous interventions I mentioned don't work out, one can even think of doing a radical option of doing a regraft, but usually no one does it. So to conclude, I would say that any transplant procedures, some chance of high or irregular astigmatism might be there. So this might be a source of frustration for both the patients and the corneal surgeons. So the focus should be on following a very good surgical technique intraoperatively and manage the postoperative astigmatism properly so as to meet the patient visual expectations.